Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2494. Today we're going to talk about a company that's driving towards zero road fatality through driver's assist systems that help us all be safer out on the road. Very interesting. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Well, guess where I am today? I'm in Israel with a very special guest by the name of Sani Ronen. Sani, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have any gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
Yes, sure, Mark. Thank you.
Well, we're going to have some fun today. I've had several guests from Israel on this show in the past years, and I didn't realize what an incredible technology center Israel really is for innovation and creating new things for us, especially in the automotive world. So you're here to teach us a lot about that. But before I give you a proper introduction and we take a deep dive into what your company's doing, would you share one little thing about you that maybe people don't know?
Sure, Mark. Yes. So I'll share something from my history that people might not know. That first of all, I'm a half professional carpenter, half professional electrician, and I was one of the first people in Israel to take a paternity leave when my daughter was born.
Oh my gosh. Well, there you go. Changing times for sure. Yeah. Back when my children were born, such things never existed. I think it's great that now the fathers can take a little time too to do bonding with those children. Too bad they can't take more time, but I understand it, but that's very cool. But the fact that your background is in carpentry and electrician, and I've always said the electricians are the smart ones because the not so smart electricians don't last very long. That's quite fascinating to me considering what you're involved in now. So allow me to give you a more proper introduction. Sani Ronen is the director of product marketing at Arbe, where they are driving a zero road fatality reality. That's a tongue twister, by enabling truly safe driver assist systems while paving the way to full autonomous driving. Sani's defined and executed hardware and software roadmaps in a comprehensive 3 to 5 year plan for Arbe as the automotive industry moves towards hands-free driving and sensors in the sensor suite becomes more and more critical since they are responsible for the safety of our vehicles. To meet the expectations of hands-free driving experience, radar must offer diversity and redundancy to the other sensors and providing reception at a long range and at all speeds. Sani's career also includes time with Micro Semi as their director of product management and marketing, Radwin Power Design, and Seabridge, and doing some construction around the house too. We'll be back in just a moment, but first a word from our sponsors, so let's give them a little love and we'll be right back. We're going to take a deep dive into technology today, so hang tight. Are you ready to take charge of your financial future? Then let me introduce you to Capitalize Your Finances. It's an online course designed to empower you with the knowledge and tools for mastering your money. This course will help you lay out the ins and outs of budgeting, the importance of emergency funds, investing strategies, and how to plan for a secure retirement. All this presented by financial planner Chris Paniotu. Chris has developed this course to help you effectively navigate your world of finance with confidence. Stop stressing about money and start taking control. Enroll in Capitalize Your Finance online course today and pave your way to financial success. To learn more, go to capitalizepodcast.com/courses, or better yet, go to the Cars Yeah website, show notes page for today's show, and click on the link under Capitalize Your Finances. You'll be glad you did. Do it today. For several years now, you've heard me talk about Linkage Magazine. I've been a subscriber since the start. Their talented and creative team brings you a spectacular publication and website that shares the automotive passion from a worldwide perspective. Linkage is about driving, restoring, collecting, and first-hand experience at collector car auctions and more. They bring you real-world values plus rational, experienced opinions, on the current markets. They cover the automotive world and the people who share our passions. And Linkage Magazine has grown, mailing you 6 issues annually. Join me on this journey with Linkage. They're geared for the automotive life. You can subscribe at linkagemag.com. If you're listening to this program, there's a pretty good chance you believe what I believe, that the collector vehicles we love are more than just a means of getting from one place to the other. They're a part of our culture, our identity, and as a people, they bring us together at vintage races, classic car auctions, and 1,000-mile rallies. That's why I support the RPM Foundation, which exists to ensure that the critical skills necessary to preserve and restore these important vehicles aren't lost to time. RPM stands for Restoration, Preservation, and Mentorship, and their goal is to inspire the next generation of vehicle restoration professionals through its outreach programs. And they include Shop Hop, Off to the Races, the RPM Future Class, and many others. These programs engage talented young people across the country and connect them with mentors and a variety of opportunities in the industry. For more information on how the RPM Foundation is driving the future of collector vehicles skilled trade, visit rpm.foundation today. So, Sani, we are back. So we're going to dive right into this because this is a hot topic, especially these days as cars become more and more technologically troubling sometimes for those of us who are in them. The idea that a car can actually drive around and we don't have to worry about it is stimulating, exciting, but also kind of spooky. So I'm going to dive right into this, and I wanted you to help us understand some of these things. And we're going to start with this one. I'm going to ask you to explain the difference between traditional radar, medium radar, and perception radar, because in our world, at least my world, radar is the old world of just capturing that cop down the road who's trying to catch me speeding. But things have changed a lot in this world. So can you explain a little bit of how all these things play out in the world of hands-free driving experiences?
Sure, Mark. So if we start with traditional radars and we look back on the industry, on the automotive industry, radar have been used in cars for more than 20 years now, even before the days of cameras and advanced driver assistant features. Radar were used as a sensor that provides data that there is something in front of you. It gives you warning that you need to stop in order to enhance safety. Some kind of emergency braking. That was used, I think, even more than 20 years ago. Those radar are based on existing technology that provides that feature in a reasonable performance. Meaning it will give you indication there is something in front of you. From time to time, it will give you a false alarm that there is something where there isn't something in front of you, or the other way around. It will miss that there is something in front of you, but still, you as a driver are the one responsible to take the action and make the stop. The assist system will just give you a warning, some kind of a sound warning, let's say, in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So this is the traditional radar, and it was based on a chipset that is a radar chipset, transmitters and receiver. You know, radar is an RF technology. It transmits RF waves, it receives them back, and then doing the processing, it can assess what is the distance, what is the speed. It actually measures it in real time. That's the big advantage of radar. It doesn't need to do calculation of the location of the detection or the speed. While other sensor, like a camera, for example, if you see a picture of a camera and you see a car in front of you, you don't know what is the distance. You don't know what is the speed of the car. What you do, you wait a few milliseconds, a few seconds, and then you see where it is located. You do estimation, and then you can say, oh, now it's like 80 meters away. Now the speed is 50 miles per hour. While in radar, you get the indication in real time. There is the Doppler effect that the RF signal will be twisted according to the speed of the detection. So you know immediately the speed of this car is 50 miles per hour. And this is valuable information. But those radar, as I mentioned, are used to be very small radars based on a very simple chip that has 3 transmitters and 4 receivers and is able to do just this basic functionality. And if we go to the next step, when the ADAS functionality is evolving, and you look at level 2 and level 2 plus, you have more features. You want to have adaptive cruise control. You want to have a lane keep assist system. Then you need to know that there is a vehicle in front of you. You want to know what is the size of the vehicle. You want to know if there is a vehicle in the lane next to you, or if there is a motorcycle behind you coming in very high speed. So you are not allowed to change to the next lane. So in order to do that, you need better resolution. You need more channels. In radars, in general, what we always say, channels, number of RF channels, receivers and transmitters, equals to performance. Same as in camera. When you want to get better resolution, right, you need a better sensor. You will have more resolution, you will get a better picture. If you have a 1K TV or a 2K TV or a 4K TV, you will see better the picture itself, right? You have more details and you will see the edges of the object. So same in radar, you need more channels, you will get better performance. So moving from 3 transmitters to 4 receivers, the next generation is what the industry is doing today, is saying, let's use the same technology, but cascade the existing chipset, the existing technology, not using only one chip of RF, but let's use 4 of them, or even more than that, and cascade them together, and let's see what we can get from that. And this is what we call the basic imaging radars that a lot of companies are claiming to do, basing it on existing 3x4 radar chipset. So they are taking the same technology, trying to get a better picture, and indeed they are able to get better resolution. They are building a bigger sensor, but still they are suffering from the false alarm that we mentioned, and they don't have enough details needed for level 2 plus, 3, 4, and 5 up to full autonomy, right? Mm-hmm. So they are missing the needed details in order to support the perception system. And then we are going to what Arbe is doing. And what we are saying, what we said in the beginning of the company, let's not use existing technology. Let's solve the problem. Let's develop a sensor that can support the autonomy of the vehicles, right? So we need the sensor, as you mentioned, to have redundancy and diversity with the cameras, something that is, I call it perception worthy, meaning bringing valuable information with reliability. And the existing radars are not able to do that. So we looked on the technology and the existing chipset were not good enough. So we developed, first of all, the RF chipset. And instead of doing 3 transmitters, we are doing 24 transmitters. And instead of doing 4 receivers, we are doing 12 receivers in a chip. So together we are building a system that can scale up to 48 by 48, 48 receivers by 48 transmitters. And that's a very nice story. And you know, the big guys, all the traditional radar chipset vendors did not do that. And why they did not do that? Because solving the RF is only one part. Then you come to the next challenge, the processing part. You need to process huge amount of data that you are getting and after processing it, generate what we call in radar a point cloud. It's like the picture of the radar that is detailed enough with tens of thousands of points per frame. In every frame that you look on the road, we are getting 10,000 of points, tens of thousands of points. So what we had to do is to develop a dedicated processor that is optimized to process this amount of data. All the off-the-shelf processors were not good enough, very expensive, very power hungry, and were not suitable for the task. So at Arbe, we developed both the RF chipset and a processor, a dedicated processor that is able to process it. And together, what we came up with is a radar system that is 48 transmitter, 48 receiver, very high native resolution that provides the needed detail to support all the enhanced features, to enhance safety, basically. Because we can measure the speed, as we said, we can detect a pedestrian, motorcycle, car, in a truck. We can classify them by the radar and eventually provide a very reliable, what we call a free space mapping. Meaning, in the end of the day, the goal of the sensor is to provide the car or the computer of the car data. Is it a free space or is it occupied? If it's occupied by a vehicle, a moving vehicle, or a stationary object, still it's something you are not allowed to go. So only when it's marked, we mark it today with green, that it's a free space, and if it's not marked with green, it's not a free space. And in the end of the day, that's the input that the perception system needs.
It's fascinating to me because what I hear is you're creating a brain inside the car that can do what our brains do, but much faster, much more elaborate, much more detailed in many ways, especially in different light situations, weather situations, and things like that. One of the things that we hear about is this phantom braking, where the system will think there's something there and just stop the car. And I'll tell you, I had an experience. The first time I ever drove, I'll pick Tesla, in a Tesla rental car, was at a car show. And the braking system in that car saved me from hitting somebody because there was all these young kids in the street that were taking pictures of all the cool cars. And I was waiting to turn, and I'm looking at all this activity and noticing the great cars, of course. And I'm going very slow. I start to turn, and this kid backs up right in front of me, doesn't look at me because he's looking through the lens of his camera at the car to my right. And the car just stops. And I go, what's going on? I look up, and there's this kid in front of me with the eyes of a deer. And I would have hit him. Now, thankfully, I was going very slow, so if I had, I probably would have just knocked him over and nothing would have happened bad. However, I got to experience that firsthand. I went, whoa, thank you, Tesla, for doing that. So when it comes to what you're creating, I don't even know where to start to ask the questions because there's so much going on. Is there any idea of within your systems or even in the future where it's with this onset of AI, where it's evolving and learning as it's doing things? So it starts to learn objects and the difference between these things as it moves forward?
Yes, definitely. I'll touch on it in a second. I just want to emphasize the point you mentioned about phantom braking. And this is actually a case that we are seeing when driving all around and making recording. Let's imagine you are going into a tunnel, okay, in daytime or nighttime. When you go into a tunnel or under a bridge and the sun has some glare, so in normal case, you would not see what's inside the tunnel. Right? The tunnel is a bit dark and you are coming from light. So your eyes and the camera will not see anything under the bridge or in the tunnel. Only when you come in, suddenly it becomes dark, then your eyes get used to that, then the camera is able to do the balance and see what's happening. So imagine you are driving and you are coming to such a tunnel, and let's say first you don't have a radar, or you have a radar that doesn't have elevation information that is detailed enough, then the car will slow down or even brake because it doesn't know what's happening in the tunnel. However, if you will have a radar that is detailed enough, that have accuracy of 1 degree in elevation, let's say, you would know there is a car driving very slowly or even stationary under the bridge or in the tunnel. So you don't need to do the phantom braking. You will change lane or you get indication. So eventually, this is an example that no matter how good your camera will be, you need another sensor for diversity that will cover the few percentage of use cases that the camera has some challenges with, right?
Right.
So that's that. Going back to your question about looking into the future and AI and neural network, so we definitely, what we're doing is taking the radar output, and the radar output, again, if you saw it, it's a point cloud with tens of thousands of points, and with your bare eye, you can see some of the details, but the computer sees much more than that. On every point, you have a lot of data points. What is the azimuth location, the elevation location, the speed, the phase. So there is a lot of data around that. And an AI system will be able to learn and see the decision and improve, right? So it's on the go. And this is actually what the Tier 1s and OEMs are doing. They are driving with radars and with perception system, keep recording. And then when they see a case that there is a challenge with the way they translated the environment, Now they want to fix it, right? So they teach the system, say, here you didn't see a car, but it's a car. Or here there is a pedestrian, it's not a truck. So it will keep learning. And, that's the big goal for a generative neural network that is able to learn and much, much, much better than what we can do as humans and provide a database on millions of hours. Because, again, in the end of the day, you mentioned the technology is very fascinating and challenging because when there is an accident, let's say, and it's the human factor, then people understand. But nobody forgives the computer factor, let's say.
Yeah,
right?
we all yell at our phones and our computers when they don't work. Many times it's human error or input. As my son who works at a big tech company always says, Dad, it's probably you're doing something wrong. It's not the system. However, you're right. And all of a sudden, all this blame goes out. Like, why didn't the car stop? Or why did it stop? Or what it's doing? This is, I love the idea of neurological change and learning that's happening within computers. While many people go, oh, AI is too scary, or, oh, we don't want these machines to take over the world. But at the same time, the fact that it can learn is absolutely fascinating to me. And you mentioned the word challenge, and I wanted to ask you about that. I can't even imagine the challenges a company like Arbe faces. However, you obviously have a lot of smart people working there, you included. If you had to pick today, one of the biggest challenges when it comes to the technology of where we're moving on autonomous driving, what would you say that would be?
Yeah, so from my point of view, historically, I was looking on the industry, and I came to the industry after a few years in communication because of the vision of having, what called a robotaxis.
Yes.
And getting rid of my own cars. I have today 3 cars. I own a Tesla that I love, and I have an old car and a middle, aged car. But still, we are 3 drivers, and I have 3 cars, and most of the days they are parking. So I really love the concept of having a community cars that you can order when you need, and it's being used by others, and it needs to be autonomous, of course. So that's a big, big challenge. I think there were some industry experts forecasting this vision to exist in 2020, or even today they are talking about 2030. I saw the industry moving from full autonomy dream to let's start with hands-off features and maybe some eyes-off features, but not the full functionality. Mm-hmm. For me, the challenge is to have really safe robotaxis that will support not only, the population of the world having less resources, less pollution, but also supporting handicapped people. And my mother that is 87 and she cannot drive, so she will be independent with this dream. Yeah. So I think that's really, really the challenge, to get to a safe autonomy. And I think the industry understood that it will take time and we need to make it in steps. So today you saw all the big vendors, all the BMW, Mercedes, all these guys are doing level 3 features that are limited, specific features in specific use case, only in highway and not in city, for example. So they want to do it in steps. So I think it will take more time, but really I'm looking forward for this day of ordering a robotaxi and having it a safe drive. I always say, will I agree that my daughter will go to school on an autonomous vehicle? Today, we are not there yet.
Yeah, you and I share something. My mother's the same age as yours, and she's at a point now where driving has become a challenge. And that's really hard for her because she had this freedom to just get in and go somewhere. Now it's compromised, and she's pushing back a little bit on the idea of, she has used Uber, but she's like, I don't know these people that are driving me around, but I can think that a vehicle that you just pull up in front of her place, she could get in it. It could take her to her doctor's appointments, to the grocery store, to the park, the beach, wherever she'd like to go. And it just leaves. So she doesn't have to worry about the ownership cost of a car and getting around. That's the cool part. Because for someone like me that's a car guy, I don't want a car that's going to drive me. I want to drive the car. However, someday, God willing, I'm going to be older and perhaps I can't drive, but I'd still like to get around. So I think it's absolutely fantastic. Part of this technology and the world that you live in now has to do with being inspired by others. And I would assume you work with a lot of inspiring people, some very smart people working on this stuff. Is there somebody that's been a driving inspiration for you in your life?
Yeah, I think definitely. I don't think it's a specific one mentor, but there were multiple mentors in my career. Usually, I think they were VP marketing, product line management, some kind of business position. I always, when I go to a new company, I look and I try to understand who can be a mentor for me that I can learn from. And the things that I think I took from those guys is, first of all, you need to make decisions. It's sometimes very challenging. You don't know, you have some risk around that, but you need to collect all the info that you can, think when the decision needs to be made, and make it. That helps you prioritize, that helps you focus, and that in the end of the day, that's the success of the company. If you don't make a decision and doing, yes, let's do both things or three things in parallel and not choose between them, then you are definitely losing. So that's one thing. Another thing that I always liked is planning. Let's look 5-7 years ahead. We want to know when we issue a product, what will be the next generation. Even from naming point of view, we have a name, what will be the name of the next one? From functionality point of view, from maturity. And that's not only from customers, but only for the company itself, for the development department. If they know what's coming in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they can plan ahead, they can make the needed preparation, they can think about the architecture that is needed. And in the end of the day, it will help, again, the success of the company. And lastly, some quote that I liked, one of my mentors told me is, I think it's a very famous one. It's like, what's the definition of what is the sentence? Making the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Yeah,
it's insanity. So that's insanity. Yeah. Exactly. It's an Einstein quote.
Yes.
That, I started with one of the companies and say, okay, we need to do that and that and that and do the planning. And they have a schedule and then they are late a year. And then after finishing, doing again, the same people are doing the calculation, the same planning, and again, late in 1 year. So the third time they will do the estimation, I say, guys, you know that we will be late according to your schedule.
Yes.
We need to do something differently. We need, to look at it in a different way, do the resources differently, and making sure that we are on time, right? So that's, one thing that I always try to improve and change and not doing the same thing over and over again.
Well, and that's all part of it. I mentioned that in your intro that you, part of your role there is defining and executing hardware and software roadmaps for the company at Arbe there in a comprehensive plan. And yeah, realizing that sometimes that plan has to change. And I wanted to ask, when you look ahead at Arbe's bucket list, as I call it, or main goal, you guys probably have a lot of goals, but what is a main goal there at Arbe when it comes to creating these systems for autonomous driving that's safe and reliable and someday results in no more fatalities on the roadway, which is hard to imagine considering how many there are, sadly, but we understand it's because of the human interaction. But what's your guys' main bucket list?
Yeah, so definitely, I think we quite cover that, and it's the same as you mentioned. It's when we look on safety, and we realize that in order to get safety, there is a certain limit of existing sensors, vision-based, like cameras and lidars. And our vision, again, that's the reason I joined Arbe, is the vision of having really enhanced safety and saving lives of people that are being killed in car accidents. We definitely believe that a radar that is good enough will be part of the sensor suite, will be a backbone sensor that is irreplaceable. And in my vision, we will see millions of autonomous vehicles driving with Arbe chipset inside, with Arbe hardware, chipset and software, and enhancing safety and preventing really the cases, all the corner cases that other sensors are not functional. And in those cases, saves life. That's in the end of the day, the goal.
Absolutely. I want to crawl into your mind a little bit, because one of the great things about what I do here at Cars Yes, I talk to people from all over the world. And one thing I've learned is that most people around the world kind of are all the same when it comes to cars. Is we're car people, we love cars, maybe different aspects or different kinds of cars. But is there one special vehicle in your life that you could share a little story about?
Yes, so I think in the picture that I've sent over, it's from my day in Micro Semi. And back then there was a sponsorship that we did. I think it was to IndyCar together with Hero.
Yep.
Yeah, it's an IndyCar. So that was, I think, 7 years ago in January, around the CES timeframe. Mm-hmm. So I went to Orange County to the headquarters, and suddenly I saw the car there. They decided to bring it over for a few days to the company. I think it was a rainy day in January, and it was inside the lobby of the company.
I saw that, yeah.
They had to disassemble the car, the doors, and bring the car over. So, from my early days, I always, as a kid, I liked to play with video games. Unfortunately, we don't have Indy or Formula One tracks in Israel, but still I was a huge fan. And I saw the car, so immediately I put over my computer, I jump inside, took a picture, and then after a few seconds, the guard came and said, "Oh, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Let's bring the sign." So they brought the sign that you cannot go in the car, but still I did it and I liked it.
I noticed in that picture, you're a little tall for that car. I think the roll bar is going to have to be extended a little bit. You don't want to keep the shiny side up, but that's pretty cool. You know what's amazing when you sit in those cars, Indy cars, Formula One cars, any race car really, you look around and you go, wow. I mean, this is quite an interesting vehicle. The fact that somebody's got to operate at such high speeds, so fast, with so much skill in such a tight, tiny little space. And there's a great shot of an American racer that has since passed over here, Dan Gurney, who's well known in the United States and around the world for designing some incredible race cars. And there's a shot of him racing in a Porsche Formula One car in Monaco back in the late 50s, early 60s, I believe. Jesse Alexander took the photo. And he's such a tall guy that his head is above the roll bar. And you think how unsafe those cars were back then. The fact that if he'd flipped that thing over, his head was the first thing that hit the pavement, not the roll bar. Yeah. So, Sani, I think they're going to need to redesign that car for you, buddy. You're a little bit too tall for that thing. I like to play car psychologist here with my guests and crawl into your mind a little bit. If you were a vehicle, and this isn't what you want to be, Sani, this is how you perceive yourself, the man in the mirror, as some kind of vehicle, what would you be and why?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think if I were a car, I was a Tesla. I would be a Tesla.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think the reason is because Tesla, what they are doing is not developing a car that is a little bit better than the existing one or, stuff like that, but thinking what the customers really want, even before they say it, and they implement it. So they are not tied to traditional cars, and they do things very differently. They give you a different feeling. And again, I'm a bit a Tesla guru, or let's say a Tesla groupie, because I really know the first time I went into a Tesla, I think was like 8 years ago, into a Roadster in the Netherlands, and I own a Tesla for 3 years. But the feeling that it gives me, it's like it thinks about me. It gives me the comfort that I want. Really, really a different feeling from a normal car. And the reason behind it is like the guys in Tesla or Elon Musk himself were thinking, what is the experience that the driver would like to get? And let's give it to him, and not compromise on, okay, what exists in the market, but let's develop what is needed, right?
Yeah. You think about the Cybertruck as an example of that. It's a very polarizing vehicle in some ways. However, I think of Elon Musk and Tesla a bit like Steve Jobs and Apple. Jobs was thinking about what do people need before people even realized they needed it. And when the iPhone came out, and it's not that old, but it feels like it's been around forever. You think of all the devices that iPhone has replaced. in our life. And I think of Tesla a little bit that way. I just returned from Southern California, took a trip down there to go to a Concours event and a Luftgekühlt event with Porsche. And I think every fifth car in Southern California is a Tesla because they're everywhere there. It's just amazing. And I have rented a few Teslas and enjoyed them and driven them. Very different kind of vehicles, enjoyable and fun. And I think they have a long way to go as well, as all vehicles do. Everything's changing so fast. How about a great book? Is there a book that you could share with our listeners that you found very enlightening and fun to read?
Yeah, definitely. I think I did mention it. I'm a science fiction fan.
Cool.
And one of the books that I read many years ago and I still think of from time to time is called Day World. It's a trilogy of 3 books, science fiction by Philip Farmer. I'm not sure you're familiar with it. It's about the population of the world being so large that people are actually allowed to live only 1 day of the week.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
The rest of the 6 days, they are stoned. There is a device, the stoner, that you go inside. Mm-hmm. Let's say you are a Tuesday guy. So on Wednesday, you are being stoned until the next Tuesday morning. And then on Tuesday, you wake up and you use a house and a car and you have a position, but only for 1 day. And there is a main character of the book that is called a daybreaker that is able to live in all the 7 days. So in every day, he holds a different position. One day is a teacher, one day is a policeman. And, it talks about it and it's very interesting because, one of the things is that the population of the world is growing, and the resources are not there. So that's a crazy idea, but still, It's a fun book to read, a fun trilogy.
Sounds like it'd be a good movie, too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's go on the ultimate drive. I like to be a bit of a enabler here with my guests. I'm going to provide you with any vehicle in the world that you can take out and enjoy. Take it for a drive anywhere in the world. And here's the other cool part of this idea is that you can take anybody with you, including somebody from the past that's no longer with us. I've even had a few people pick some people from the future, which is an interesting concept. So if I was going to enable a Sani Ronen to go on the ultimate drive, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so that's an interesting concept. I can drive with my grandson.
Nice. Yeah, interesting. That's a cool one.
Yeah, when I'm thinking about it, I want to mix it and, all the things that I like. So I would drive in Iceland.
Okay.
Do the ring road. It's like 800 miles around Iceland.
Yep.
In a DeLorean.
Okay.
With Steve Jobs that we mentioned.
Yeah.
And I will talk to him a little bit about innovation and entrepreneurship and especially about vision. Because as you mentioned, Steve Jobs were not only thinking about what we need before we defined it, but he was always able to talk to his R&D and demand from them things that they said, Steve, it's impossible. You want to have a battery this size that will last 7 days? It's impossible. There is no technology. He said, yeah, but I want it. Yeah. So in 3 months, you should have it, right? He was able not to deter from people coming and saying it cannot be done, or the technology is not there, but he was still pushing for that and eventually succeeded. So I would like to talk to him a little bit in this round trip in the DeLorean. And, if we will push a wrong button, we'll go back in time a little bit in Iceland and see, the volcanoes and all the waterfalls that are there, which are amazing.
I was going to ask you, would you be hitting 88 miles an hour and go forward or back in time? I have a feeling you would do that, Sani, knowing you now. Yeah, and you already answered the question, which is pretty cool. But Iceland, they've been having some volcanoes erupting and causing some challenges over there. But that's a fascinating place. I've never been to Iceland, but I'd love to go because it just looks out of this world, like a different kind of place. But sounds like a fun trip. Sani, you've taken us on a wonderful journey into the future today, talking about what Arbe's doing and your team there. I wondered if you could leave us with some parting words of wisdom or advice when it comes to autonomous driving, perhaps, or the future, or the current days.
Definitely. So one thing that I think should be the main focus, and again, it's not only in autonomous, not only in automotive, in every company and even every person, is about strategy and where you want to go, right? So that's something that should be always on your mind. And I always, when I'm presenting in different shows, I'm having the picture from Alice in Wonderland, when she's coming to a crossroad and she sees the cat and she's asking, oh, which road I should take, right? There are multiple roads. And the cat asks her, where you want to go, where you want to get to. And then Alice answers, it doesn't really matter. I don't care. And the cat says, okay, so every road will get you there. It doesn't matter, right? So if you want to get to a certain place, you need to define it. And then you define the road together, right? You define the tactics in order to get there. So if you don't do that, you will never know where you stand, and it will will not enable you to progress. So even in personal life, where you want to be in 5 years, it's a question always you should be asking yourself, and also on the business point of view, what we want to achieve, and then we can look in the tactics together. So that's my tip. Always keep it in front of you and think about what's your strategy in business and in life.
Yep. Otherwise, it'll just pass you by. Or you'll end up somewhere you don't want to be. Even worse. How can people learn more about Arbe?
We have our website, www.arberobotics.com. We have a very active LinkedIn page. You can learn, you can download information. We have a lot of cool videos presenting the technology. So these are the main locations to get more information.
Absolutely. I'll put links to that, but they're very easy to find. Arbe, A-R-B-E. Check them out. They are the future, and they are our future. And whether you like the idea of autonomous driving or not, it's coming our way. And at some point, you might just need it. So keep the mind open, as they say. I want to do a shout out thank you to Didi Rudenstein. She's the one who brought us Sani today. She's brought many guests here to Cars Yeah. She's from Propel Strategic Communications. So Didi, thank you once again. Sani, thanks for being so generous today with your time, your expertise, and sharing what you and the team at Arbe are doing. This is absolutely fascinating, setting the future for all of us. Until you and I talk again, I'll see you down the road.
Thank you very much, Mark. It was a pleasure.
This was great fun. Hey, guess what? Some of you regular listeners will remember back in 2019, I created 10, 11 shows called Cars Yeah TV, where I went to some fabulous locations of past Cars Yeah guests, and we did a TV show about it. Well, they're up on the Cars Yeah YouTube channel. So go check it out at YouTube. Just type in Cars Yeah, and the shows will be there for you to enjoy. I hope you have fun watching.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.